Okay, we'll look to get started. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us, and welcome to the VWFHA and Island briefing joint this year. There are going to be a few things that are maybe a bit more specific to the Vancouver League versus the Island, but we'll kind of come across those when they come up. Really, it's great that we hopefully have a bit of normalcy in our season. I think we're all chomping at the bit to get out to get out there this year, and I think it's going to be hopefully a really wonderful season. Pretty sure this is recording. I'm just going to stop the poll. Now, my apologies for as much as I hope to think I'm technology savvy. It's the first time I've ever done the webinar on my own. Hashtag I miss Ben Harvey, who would do this for me. So apologies if it's a bit disjointed. I'm really sorry. Thankfully, you've got the actual PDF briefing already, but if I'm struggling to get the polls up, it might just be that we need to kind of just roll with it. So apologies if it's a bit disjointed, everyone. It's looking like if I share the results, you can see them. Good. So we have a pretty heavy base of umpire. Now this briefing is targeted towards umpires, but that is more because this is the rules we need to understand. But I think it's really good that people that are coaches or a team rep or a player, or even a spectator or a parent, you kind of have an idea of where we're trying to take the team of umpires this year. And there's a few things, having done this for a few years now, that I think we need to kind of tweak and amend based on feedback and having spoken with some teams. Just to introduce myself, for those of you that don't know, my name is Leila Sacre. I am the VWFHA umpire coordinator, but I wear many, many hats. But I am currently an FIH International Elite umpire. I've spent the last 6-7 years in the UK umpiring in the English Premier League and doing various roles in there. So it's my first full season back in the same time zone as everybody, which is amazing. And I'm looking forward to being out there myself, as well as playing. So apologies to anybody that has to umpire my brutal playing this year. So let's stop sharing that, and hopefully we'll get this up and going. And I still haven't done that right. I'm sorry, I'm trying. So let me just go here, share. Okay. So just starting off, we want to think about our philosophy. Hopefully my poll's not in the way. I'm really sorry, everyone. I miss Ben Harvey. I'm just going to get the polls out of the way. We'll just go with it. We're going to roll. We're just going to go. Why do we umpire? We umpire because we enjoy it. We umpire because we want to serve the game. We are there to serve the players. We are there to make it a success. And we do it because we have a passion for it. And maybe it's because you've been told you have to umpire. That's a great way to introduce it to it too. Or maybe you're a young kid and you're going, ooh, I could use the extra cash. That's fine too. So there's lots of different reasons as to why we umpire, but ultimately we want to see success of the teams. So how are we going to achieve this goal? We want to keep things safe. And I think in particular, because a lot of people haven't been playing, it's really important. We're all going to be rusty, and it's going to be an interesting first month back. So I think we just need to keep about things, keeping it fair, keeping it safe, and allowing the teams to demonstrate as much skill as possible. But really, when we're umpiring, there should be nothing that we do that surprises the teams. And I think that's why this briefing is really good, to add a bit of consistency within the league. So we want to think about our key pillars here. And we want to think about skill, presentation, ball possession and tackling, and the flow. And really, these are kind of the 4 key pillars that we talk about. And in particular, we want to think about the protection of skill. And sometimes we need to think about how we're going to eliminate dangerous tackles to keep the players safe. We need to think about common sense approach. And I know sometimes we say, well, it's just common sense. it's sometimes really hard to do when you're in the moment. But we want to think about, in particular, with free hit management, you know, if it's not right in that spot and it's close enough and you deem it fine, then go with it. And same thing when we talk about possession or tackling, you know, thinking about anything quote illegal that is going to prevent players from getting the ball. So we want to just think about those kind of key pillars. I'm not going to go into this too much because you guys do have the notes and hopefully you've already done your homework. So we talk about our toolbox, and where we as umpires, we build our toolbox by umpiring games more. Unlike players, they get to practice during the week. They have a coach. We don't get that same practice. So we need to think about how are we building our toolbox and building our awareness, building our recognition, and then how do we implement those into our next game? And that's really important. So we want to think about position, the intent, and the timing of certain skills. So the key to game management, everybody always says you've got the first 5 minutes, set your stall early. And that is quite important. It gives you an idea of how the teams are playing. If you're sending in that quick, sharp whistle right off the bat, teams go, "Ooh, they mean business. They're in control." And that's really important. It establishes who you are as an umpire. But we want to think about our accuracy. We want to think about watching the game and not necessarily the ball. Okay. And we want to think about our communication, and really, this is our connection and our relationship with the players. You could be the best technical umpire in the world, but if you don't have that connection with the players and build that rapport, it's not going to matter. It is very much more relationship based, probably, than always getting your calls technically right. Okay. There are umpires that are absolutely, brilliant with their rapport, and they can get away with a lot of probably wrong calls just because of the rapport they're getting. I'm not saying make wrong decisions. I'm just saying that's where they buy their credibility. So in terms of game management, now this is what we are doing in the Vancouver Women's League. Okay, so if you are watching from the island, please do check your regulations on what you guys are going to be doing. We're doing 4 quarters of 17 minutes running time. The only time you're stopping, penalty stroke, injuries, okay? And again, that 2 minutes is a water break. It's not a coaching session, saunter in, saunter out. The time starts immediately at the end of that quarter. And if the teams aren't out at the end of that 2 minutes ready to take that pushback, you go, right, we're starting time. But that doesn't mean the team gets to just go and take the pushback and the other team's all sprinting on. Okay, that happened in the 2014 World Cup with Korea. We're not going to have that happen. The game time is going to start, but the teams can't actually start the game until you initiate that pass back. And that being said, we've got some new teams in the division. We maybe have some people returning after some time that haven't played, and most people haven't actually played a game in a while. So let's be diligent and patient and communicate to the players of what we're expecting. And it's going to be a lot of coaching in the first few weeks back. Okay, so we just need to be patient and working with the teams. Again, it's building that rapport early. So the links between offenses and technical decisions and personal sanctions. And there's something very interesting that I've been noticing, not just within the women's league, but in kind of women's hockey on the whole. And this is something I've noticed from when I was in the UK as well, is there's this idea that, well, they didn't mean to do it. Well, most players don't mean to do something unless they're running around chasing after a player. Their intent is usually, I tangled them up, or yeah, I mistimed it, or yeah, I went in a bit too hard. But nobody's that malicious enough. But I think the problem is we're still not penalizing enough. And a lot of the feedback I've received from the league over the years is there aren't enough cards. And so I was thinking, it's all well and good that we have the carding briefing, but we're not recognizing when those cards need to be delivered. And I think it's really important that we get away from this idea of, well, they didn't mean to do it. If somebody has taken somebody away from a significant disadvantage, it needs to be penalized. We're trying to keep this sport attractive, free-flowing, thinking about those 4 key pillars. If what that player did impedes that to a significant extent, then yeah, it needs to be a personal penalty. So I want us to think about, what are our green card offenses? Playing the ball after the whistle, or interference with 5 meters and low impact. I'm not saying the first time that happens in a game, out comes the card. It's what people call it the ladder. I call it the elevator. Okay, that seems to be the new thing that's coming in. And the elevator is because you can go up and down in your elevator. Yeah. As opposed to the ladder, it's a little bit harder to do. You can go up and down quicker. So you want to think about, if that's happening, have you given that hard whistle right off the bat to say, no, leave the ball? And if they then continue to do it, then when we talked about surprises, when that card comes out, it's not a surprise, okay? We're thinking about off the ball minor physical offenses. So are they pushing, or they're holding? Are they breaking down play? When we talk about low impact, is it somewhere kind of in the middle of the field? Did they use a deliberate use of feet? Did they deliberately use the backside of their stick? But that's not to say we can necessarily mind read. And I think we find this at the lower divisions in particular, where they're doing things. I think sometimes we just need to be mindful of what their actual intent is. And actually, that's what we talk about, reading the game, having a feel for it. If you've got somebody out there who clearly does not look like they know what they're doing, it's important that you take that into consideration and educate first before we start using these other measures. Okay? And misconduct, swearing, swearing, actually, I would put it a higher category, so I'll come back to that. But crowding of the umpire. Okay, if somebody's asking you a question, there is no reason more than one person needs to come running in. All right. 5-minute yellow card offenses. So high impact on the play, or they've repeated it. So if you've already given a hard whistle for a 5-meter infraction, if you've now given a green card for it and they're still doing it with high impact, meaning they've actually influenced the play, then you would look to go to a yellow card, okay? Breakdown of play with high impact. So where you tend to see these a lot would be within the 23, or where you see it quite often is they go, well, I'm going to commit this foul just outside the 23, so I don't give a penalty corner upgrade, and I only get potentially a free hit. If that, you can usually tell where they're trying to break it down. We think about physical fouls, or the stick. This includes off-ball incidents, okay? And other repeated offenses in the green card. So again, tapping the ball away, so forth. 10-minute yellow cards. So these are physical fouls, and these are ones that are dangerous, okay? These are the ones that include sliding tackles. These are the ones that potentially could end somebody's playing career. And we need to think about how we're keeping it safe. Is somebody coming in, wheeling their stick dangerously, chomping down, okay? That's what we need to consider with a 10-minute yellow. And it's, again, when you think about high impact, these are nasty. There's no regard for that player's safety. I'm not saying that it's intentional, because if it's intentional to hurt, we all know what that would be. But there is a clear difference with coming in hard with just no regard, okay? And they just may not know they're doing it. And repeated technical yellow card offenses. So you've already given a yellow card for, a nasty stick tackle. Sorry, you happen to be the next person to get it. That's a 10-minute yellow. We've already given that, okay? But I think what's really important is it's not about, well, you get a green card, and then, well, they've had a warning, they've had a warning. It's not about tit for tat. It's about, are you delivering that message to the whole field? Because if they happen to be the next person that does it, sorry, I have to give you that card. So we need to think about, how are we delivering these cards? And it's not a personal attack on that person. If you insult them when you give it to them, or you're laughing, that's different. So we need to think about the delivery, but it's more about keeping the game safe and keeping the game in the best manner possible. So when we're thinking about that breakdown of play and that poor tackling, we need to look at the game for clues, okay? Do they have numbers behind the ball, right? What are their potential outcomes versus attacking potential? If there's nobody else but the goalkeeper and they make that tackle, what do we think is going to happen? Okay. Is it accidental or is it deliberate? Is it context? We've seen players where they go and trip and then they take out the other player and they're all going, that's a foul, that's a foul. It's like, hold on a minute. You can tell the difference between somebody that's lunging versus somebody that's, just clumsy with their feet. So keeping that into context, right? And there is a difference between our game becoming more physical and the physical play eliminating skill, and that's different. We're not allowing those kind of soccer tackles where they're coming in and throwing in their shoulders, but we can allow them to go more shoulder to shoulder and compete. So there is a fine line between allowing more physical play and what is going to eliminate somebody being able to produce a skill, okay? Now, what I want us to keep in mind is we don't want to go hunting. And when I mean hunting, I don't want us to go out saying, well, Leela said we need to keep an eye out for this, and then that's going to be a card, and that's going to be a card. We need to keep context of our match, okay? Like we said, accidental versus deliberate on those, okay? Educating, thinking about what other tools can we use to keep the match safe, to be effective, before we just start chucking cards out. Because ultimately, I want to play 11 versus 11. Sometimes, unfortunately, despite our best efforts, it doesn't always happen. And then that's where you go, well, as we say, make it their problem, don't make it yours. If you don't deal with it, it becomes your problem and it makes it harder for you in the game, okay? What I want us to really keep in mind is where to watch. A lot of times people go, well, if I'm kind of the trail umpire, where am I looking? And I think what's really important is we talk about keeping a wider field of vision. And so the best way to almost think about it is for you to kind of have, I had Louise Knipe, who is an FIHUM, she said, keep your bottom and your back at a 45-degree angle. So you should almost have yourself where if here's the sideline and here's the end line, you're looking at the field. So you've got this wider field of vision, as opposed to the minute I turn, I can only see here. And I'm kind of relying on my peripheral to look. But at the same time, it's about the teamwork, okay? What you don't want is, if you can see the yellow kind of triangle, they're looking at more where the ball is going to come in transition. The other person is looking to support their colleague in the circle, because we can't watch individually the entire field. So it's about working in conjunction with our colleague. And where it becomes kind of this grayish area is in the middle. Where do we each look? We're both kind of looking at the play, but are we keeping an idea of, if the ball is coming towards me, I'm looking at the front contact, whereas if it's going away from me, I might be looking at, okay, is there a hand on the back? Is there a push? What are they doing? Are they leaning? There's other angles you can be looking at, but it just opens up the field of vision for us to cover more, okay? So I have a few clips from some colleagues that I took when I was coaching over there. And I just want you to think about his proactive positioning when the ball, you can see the ball is over here. And I want you to think about how his positioning here, the ball's essentially at the halfway line, and just watch his movement.
Oh. Good. Good.
So what was really good there by Dan, other than my commentary as I was being hit with the ball, was as the ball's moving, he's constantly moving, but he's already towards his back line and he's into the field, because where our most critical decisions are inside that circle. I'm not saying that we shouldn't make every single call, but where is it more critical for us to get our accuracy correct? Is it inside the circle, or is it that kind of football that we think happened up at the halfway line on the sideline? Most teams would say, I want technical accuracy in the circle and at least within our 23, okay? That's where we need to think about being proactive in our movement and being deeper, and why we say about proactive management and movement up the field. So not getting caught flat with the play. So let's take a look at another one. And what I like about here is his positioning on the 15-meter head. So here, he's already kind of predicted the ball's on his out. He's inside. But then he starts to transition up. He doesn't keep walking, sorry about that. Keeps moving, but look at how far inside the field is. He changes his angle. And then he keeps moving inside. Keeps moving, keeps moving. He's almost probably about 15 meters inside the field. We want to think about not always staying on the sideline. Sometimes there's a time and a place, and some of our fields don't permit it, is that runoff of coming more further out to get that angle. But sometimes by you coming inside, it actually gives you a better angle, but it also keeps you closer to your colleague. So if they're further onto that baseline, like Dan would have been in that first clip, by you moving inside, you actually keep the same distance. What you don't want to have is where you're both super far apart, and then that middle area becomes really muddled with, we miss things and you know, blowing and pointing each other's different direction. It keeps you connected more. So thinking about playing with that, and you're not going to get it right off the bat. International umpires are still trying to figure out this positioning. And sometimes even if you position in the right place, the teams won't do what you expect, and then you get caught out. So you just have to think about, how do you reposition to be able to see the ball in the best position possible. And then I've got one more here.
Green Hertzberger. Van Dam, back to Hertzberger, coming
So
across.
watching Dan here,
Is,
just in the green, watch his movement.
Dawson gets it strong. Finds Weir, who mishandles, and here is Sevi Van Ass. Van Ass comes inside, still going Van Ass into the circle, tries to find the foot.
Watching Dan, not the hockey.
There is Howard once more to tidy up. Here is Mitten. To Weir. Weir tries to find Mitten on the.
So what you could see there, and I'll kind of play it one more time, but without the volume so I can talk. Long are the days of us just standing and kind of looking around. What Dan does really well here is he's constantly positioning along the back line, but then he moves in as the play moves. And then as the play is coming towards him, he starts creeping into a circle further. But then the ball starts to come out, so then I have to move back out. Okay, I come in a little bit because the players are there. No, I need to get myself a better angle. I'm gonna keep moving. I'm gonna come out to this angle. So if you ever look at your pedometer, you should, you know, you could almost be getting 10,000 steps in a game because you're constantly moving. It's not about doing long sprints. It's about these littler movements to be proactive so that you're in the best position, as we say, to sell your decision. It may not always be the right decision, but if people look up and they see that you're there and it's a credible position to make that call, people go, oh, okay. If you're 50 yards away, or you're looking through tons of bodies, and it just limits your credibility. So thinking about being in a position to sell your decision. So free hits within the 5 meters of the circle. And this is something that I was talking with, even some of our national teams still struggle with. The biggest thing you can do is it's our proactive management. It's our communication. So if there is a free hit just outside the circle or between the solid line and the dash mark, there is different management. So if the players, and Sarah Wilson has a great video about this, if you have time to say 5 meters, please, the players should be able to get back 5 meters. If they choose not to, then it becomes a bit more of an issue that they could engage the player, okay? If they take the free hit very quickly, then it becomes, if you have any questions, sorry, just as a side note, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, just because I can't really see like where to click to go back onto my chat. So I will answer any questions you may have at the end. So please do put them in. I just can't see how to click them. Technology illiterate sometimes. So you want to think about, if they've taken the quick free hit, the defender has not had a chance to move. But that doesn't mean the defender can just go and tackle. So if they're just on the inside of that circle's edge and they're standing there and they take the quick free hit, that defender can shadow them while they're staying inside the circle. Once they've gone 5 meters, then that defender can step outside and tackle. If they've gone 4 meters and that defender steps out and tackles, what would it be? PC, because it's a infringement on that attacker. Okay, I think I've got a video on the next one here.
Comes back to
Here we
Wetton.
go.
Did Wilder just get Rankine up?
Outside, though,
Just outside the feet bar. Looked like it was almost on the line, but Australia not going to refer it.
5, boys. Hold on.
He really has to
Stop,
get fast.
please. Stop. Just stop. Guys! Fellas, calm down, please. Free hit this way. You guys need to get 5, eh? Yeah. Just trying to explain to them again.
There was confusion about this in New Zealand on Friday night. We changed that you have to be 5 meters back inside the circle. It used to be as long as you were inside the circle, because the ball couldn't be played in until it had gone 5 meters, so you could stay inside the circle.
So that's been slightly adapted. But I mean, here's Simon Taylor, who's also just done the Olympics, and even he struggles to manage these players sometimes. But the key point is there the players had the opportunity to back off 5. I mean, my logical thinking would be, why wouldn't you naturally get 5 anyways? Because then you can go and tackle right away. But players don't always think as quick as that. So we need to be thinking about, how can we be proactive with our voice? And it's not coaching. You're almost telling them in a way of, this is the rule, remind yourself. So it's not coaching, you're not coaching the teams. If they choose to not listen to it, then that's on them, okay? The self-pass, the biggest thing that, and I've put this in here again because we did have one season with it, but then we all had COVID, so I just wanted to remind ourselves that a free hit awarded inside the circle can be taken anywhere inside the circle or up to the top of the circle in line with the offense. So if the free hit, if they, want to take it over to the other side, then they can, right? So just thinking about that, but we want to avoid with the self-pass of being proactive with our management. So nope, ball's there, okay, play on. We want to avoid them taking it from the incorrect spot to then go, no, sorry, I wanted it over there. And then it just kind of slows the game down. So thinking about, are they even making the attempt to stop the ball in the correct spot, okay? You need to think about, sometimes players take it 3-4 meters from where the foul actually happened. Think to yourself, who's been disadvantaged? If there's no one around and they take the ball, play on, okay? If there's a player immediately 5 meters away that could then challenge, then yes, make sure that you're being proactive with its movement. I see questions coming in, so that's good. I'm really sorry. I wish I could answer as I go along. I just can't quite figure it out. If you have my WhatsApp, you can always send me a message and maybe I can figure it out. Penalty corners. And this is something that's slightly different. If an attacker breaks early, the injector is sent to the halfway line. Okay? So longer the days of, well, the injector, they broke early, so they have to go. Doesn't matter. It could be somebody from that far left side running into tip. If they broke early, the injector goes. Okay? But if the defender breaks early, they are sent to the halfway line. They cannot be replaced. The attacking team can replace. Seems a bit unfair, but I don't make up the rules. So the really important thing here is to think about subsequent short corners, okay? A subsequent short corner is when the ball has not traveled 5 meters outside the dash mark, the corner is still live. And if another infraction happens, it is another penalty corner. That means that injector cannot come back, okay? And that defender that broke early cannot come back, okay? It is a subsequent short corner. So that means they still have to continue to defend with that person injecting or with only 3 defenders. Now, what happens if 2 defenders break early? Okay, well, if they break early at the same time, common sense prevails. Well, 2 of you went, let's choose 1 of you, and let's not do it again, shall we? So you just send 1 back. You're not going to send both of them back because that's double jeopardy. Same thing if you've got 2 attackers going early, it's still going to just be the injector. But we want to be mindful of the injector and their feinting. It needs to be one continuous motion. But keeping in context with our league, sometimes it's not one continuous motion. It might be jilted. They might be trying to do the fancy injection rather than just a sweep hit. Again, common sense prevails. It might be you go, I need you to just try it a little bit smoother, a little bit faster to allow it for it to be a little bit clearer that you're going to take the injection. So, sorry, I'm just making sure that I'm connecting on there. But really, the biggest thing is you're not sending 2 defenders back. You choose 1 to start. Then if they break early again, then yeah, they go back and then they're short 2 defenders, okay? So you need to be thinking about common sense there. So let's just look at an example here. Watching 3.
More central this time.
They've broken. The dragger. Yeah. Number 8. Number 8. You have to go. Because if your team breaks, it's the dragger.
Oh,
So
some
3
breaking
go
there.
early.
Straight away.
Okay, so the
Emma
injector has
Pouvrez.
to go back.
Oh, that's a waste really for Belgium.
So just touching on the completion of penalty corners, they removed one of the other rules, and I'm not going to say it because otherwise it'll get into people's minds. But regardless of the time in the game, okay, the ball has to go 5 meters outside the circle, so the dash mark, and that's when the penalty corner is over. And that's even at the end when time's expired. So if they bring the ball out just to the edge of the dash mark and there's no time left on the clock and they put the ball back in and play about and then score, that the play is still going. You cannot blow it because it hasn't actually traveled 5 meters. Okay. And it's the same thing in regulation time until that ball has actually traveled 5 meters out, the penalty corner is still live. Okay, but I think this is where a really good changes come in, is when you obviously cannot substitute during a penalty corner. However, a player can re-enter the field during a penalty corner if, for example, they had gotten a green card or a yellow card. They don't need to wait until the corner's over. We used to do that. I think that was a little bit almost like, again, a double whammy, especially if you were the defending team. So I think that's been a really nice change to that. PC equipment guidance. Now, if any of you watch the Olympics, there's always interesting things that come out of the Olympics and guidance or things that are still being clarified to this day. And a lot of us aren't necessarily playing with the full kit that they're doing in the Olympics, like the knee pads. Maybe some of the premier teams or university teams might have that. Most people aren't. Most people are just wearing a face mask. You might get the few people with the kind of like goalie gloves to be wearing. What's interesting is this is actually not in the rule book, nor is it a regulation from FIH. And I did have to clarify it with a few people. It is up to the league's discretionary to determine what is our leniency and so forth. Denise, great point. I'll come back to you in a minute. So the PC equipment is we need to give a little bit of leniency with face mask and equipment who are in the immediate possession. So somebody stopped the ball and they're trying to dribble. Okay, we can't expect them to be able to dribble and take off their face mask. It's quite the talent if they can do that, which is amazing. But if they're in possession, that doesn't mean that as soon as they get the ball 5 meters outside the circle, the rest of the players shouldn't be taking off their equipment. There's no reason for it. Okay, players are allowed to take a free hit awarded with the PC equipment, but after that, they need to immediately take it off. Okay, so the guidance and application here. Proactive communication to players to remove their masks from the field of play. So if you see them, as soon as that ball's traveled 5, you can be going face mask, mask, mask. You can be trying to help them to remind them. If after communication, players continue to engage in play and have had an opportunity to remove their equipment, so the ball's gone out, let's say past the 23, penalty corner's over, and they still haven't done it, then you will award a free hit to that other team. Okay. Should there be continuous repetitive non-compliance within reason, you've done all your other stuff you've tried to do, and if the infraction is inside the penalty inside the 23, a penalty corner may be awarded. Doesn't mean you have to. It just means you may do it. Okay. But PC equipment is definitely not to be worn past the 23-meter area, after which you would just award a free hit. Okay. Just one thing to think about, I didn't touch upon with the cards, thinking about this situation in particular, is if you are managing it and you don't have a technical person to monitor it, what I would do is there's 2 ways you could do it. If you're the umpire on one side, you could say, right, you stand over here, and then I can wave you back in. Okay. If you do have somebody technical timing it, that's fantastic. Now, if anybody has an iWatch, there's a really great app. And let me just, do I have it on my phone or on my other one? Oh, what is it called? Slowly drawing a blank for me. Cindy, you can message me because I can't remember off the top of my head. But what's really great about it is it's actually designed by a hockey person. And so you can actually set your timings in and your breaks that automatically start when you hit start, but you can time your cards And you can also enter in the player's number, and you can enter in score. So I'm just gonna, I'll find out, I'll get somebody to message me with what it is, because I'm completely drawing a blank on what it is. But it's a really great app where you can actually help time your own corners. It's called Sticky. STICKY. And if you just scroll down, you'll be able to, it'll be quite far down the app list, but it'll tell you, you'll be able to see for like hockey and timing. And you can always shoot me a message if you're like, is this the actual app? I'll try and send out something to both the island and to the VWFHA with what the app icon looks like. Aerial passes. I'm not really going to touch on them that much because we're doing something separate for that. But to be honest, with Tokyo having just passed, there's a lot of, pun intended, things up in the air about this. So we're still kind of waiting on a little bit of clarification on a few things. And so, to be honest, we don't really see a ton of them. But when that further clarification does come out, I'll be happy to discuss that. So I'm not gonna, it's very complicated. I don't know why. Moving on. Goalkeeper privileges for substitution. So no kicking backs, right? You either have a goalkeeper or you play with 11 field. If fans or buts. But if you are defending a penalty corner or a penalty stroke, no player is allowed to use goalkeeping gear. You can only use your defensive unit gear. Now, I don't know if anybody watched the European Championships. It was a very interesting situation, lots of things happening. It ended up with the goalie being given a card, which means off he goes, and a penalty corner. How exciting. And so what happened was the defender put on the goalkeeper's helmet and like gloves, and we're all going, I'm screaming at the TV going, you can't do that. But what they could have done, if they had a second goalkeeper, they could have substituted in their goalkeeper and put them in for the penalty. That's like an assumption. It's very interesting. So hopefully we don't ever have to card a goalie, please, because then it just muddles the water. But thinking about what are they allowed to do, and what was very interesting was that it was Holland that was doing it, and they had no idea about the rule. And so that's why understanding the rule book is really, really important, not just as an umpire, but as a coach or as a player. I would probably say if you're ever going to watch a team for its rule intelligence, watch Belgium men. They use the rules to their advantage in a way that is so intelligent. I've never seen how they can get it to work to their advantage every single time. It's actually remarkable. So knowing the rules is really important for everybody that participates in the game. Presentation of the game. We don't like abusive outbursts. We don't like misconduct. We don't want people circling in. Thankfully, we have a wonderful league where we don't tend to do that as much. I'm not saying people don't have frustrations, but abusive language is not going to be tolerated. And that means from spectators, that means from coaches, that means from anybody that's on the pitch. But what I really urge you to do is if you feel it has crossed that line, you need to report it. And if I know on the island, you guys have certain processes of which to do, then report it through that way. Same thing in the women's league. If there's some conduct that you go, you know what, I didn't appreciate that, that was uncalled for, report it. Because if you don't report it, it's one, going to make a problem for the next umpire to go in and deal with. And two, that's not what we want. That's not what we want our umpires to experience, because we want you to have fun too. And I've I've lost umpires because of conduct like that, and it's not fair. We don't go out to purposely do a bad job. I hope not. We go out and we make mistakes. Absolutely. We should own up to them if we've made them, but being abused and being mistreated is not going to have it. So you need to make sure that you do speak up, because we need to stamp that out of our sport. So you decide, and it's a really annoying because I can't, let's see if I can get my poll up. Okay, I've got my little band here. Let's see if I can actually see. Oh, I can't see because I wonder if I can try this. Let me try exiting out. Let me try sharing the poll. This is going to be a bit shifted, so apologies. So let's go with this one. I'm going to launch it, and I'll give you time once we watch. Hopefully this isn't in your way. Oh, now I can see my little mouse. Well, that's weird.
Finding much to aim at the moment. Again, the Netherlands showing how disciplined they are. It's that combination that makes them so formidable.
Okay, go ahead, launch into the poll. What would you give? Again, it's completely anonymous. What would you give for that? It may be a bit grainy as well, and I apologize for that, but that's why it's good that we're recording this, so you can always go back and then see the clip a little bit more. Come on, get those votes in. There's no right or wrong. You got to make that decision quick in a game. What would you give? Go with your gut. Okay, I'll give you about another 15 seconds. Okay, so the reason I know I maybe showed this clip last year, there's a few different talking points that I wanted to go over. So, green card, absolutely. And there's things that I want us to notice. One, as we're watching, let me rewind it a little bit. Look at the timestamp. Okay, now we don't know what other cards have gone on. But in the second quarter, with about 6.5 minutes to go, I can guarantee you messages have already been delivered. So this card won't be a surprise, okay? But let's
Finding
watch
much to aim at the moment. Again, the Netherlands showing how disciplined they are. It's that combination that makes them so.
There. Where it becomes different, if she had just run over the ball, because she was within 5 when she took that free hit. If she had just run over the ball and maybe it accidentally hit her, then yeah, you could just give a free hit because it was accidental. But her stick was down, reversed, ready to trap. She knew what she was doing. That has to be accompanied with a green card there because it's so obvious, okay? So that's when we're talking about awarding those personal penalties. She took away an opportunity for this player to receive the ball, okay? That's what we talk about with context of the match. What is their intent? Looking at those little things like the stick, pretty obvious. Okay, so let's take a look at a different one. Some of these might be the same, but I might have slightly different talking points. So let me stop sharing this. Let me go to the next poll. I'm going to launch it so you can see your options.
Lovely threaded pass through that from Mikkelsen. Davis picks it up. Lovely way to pass that from the New Zealand captain. Bramley. Maguire. To take her side forward.
Okay, what's your decision? Yeah, it may have been a bit grainy, so I apologize. But I'm going to go back to it. Okay, I'll give it about 15 more seconds. Okay. So interesting here. Definitely interesting. If I go back and let's start it.
Lovely threaded pass.
Context. Third quarter, almost at the end. Okay. New Zealand's also up 2-0. Is that important? Maybe, maybe not. But it's keeping something in context in our mind.
That from Mikkelsen. Davis picks it up.
Oh, dang it. Oh, don't look at that one. Let's try this one.
Lovely threaded pass through that from Mikkelsen. Davis picks it up.
There. What happened was that tackle, thinking about her positioning, she's not going to really be able to challenge getting that ball. And if you come in from that position, we call it a high risk, potentially high penalty. Okay? Where she makes contact is halfway up the stick. That is a high impact play. And there's no reason for her to be doing that. Look at where they are. They're almost in their attacking third quarter. She's got players behind her. It's completely unnecessary. Okay? But what's really great here is they see the opportunity.
Lovely way to pass that from the New Zealand captain.
To get the ball.
Bramley. Maguire. To take her side forward,
But what they did was allow the advantage to go. And they actually gained 3/4 of the pitch off that bad tackle. Now, we've got players here that can have that ability. Do our players necessarily always have that ability? No. So it might be better that you sometimes give that quick free hit and the card right away just to help kind of spread the game out. But that's where you want to think about, is there an advantage I can play for this? And then come back to it. And that's where you and your colleague need to work in your pregame chat of, okay, if the play is going to come towards me, we need to take a mental recognition. Your players may not have numbers. Okay, the player with the pink scrunchie, I need to come back to her and give her a card. Because sometimes the worst thing you can do is kill a really lovely advantage because you got to give that card right away. Sometimes the best advantage is to kill that play right away, but sometimes it's just to let it go and then come back. I'll look for another clip next year because I know it's a hard one, but I just love the advantage on it and it always gets people chatting. Okay, let's stop that one. We're going to go on to the next poll. Watch that for you. Okay. Next clip. What would you give? Go. I'll give you about 10 more seconds. Okay. So here are the results, which is really interesting. What if I tell you it's a free hit for Belgium? Watch this. Okay. Let's watch the clip again. Now, what has the attacker done here? Let's just back it up. He's got control here, totally fine. I'm gonna turn the volume down just so you can actually hear my lovely voice. He's kind of dumped it through. And he's trying to force something. How, my question is, how is he trying to get the ball by coming through the player? What gives him the right to push through the back of the player who is in every right having the ability to play that ball? Because he's not obstructing. He turned quick, and I think sometimes we get caught on a quick turn and that leads to obstruction. What gives that player that right to push through? I mean, I don't like showing still photos because I think it adds a lot of confusion and you can take things out of context. But if I could slow it down more. And slow motion always makes things look worse. But look at where the defender's in a fine position. He's kind of flipped the ball up. He's not really maintaining possession. The defender's actually in a good position to play it. And now look at what the attacker starts to do. Why is he trying to tackle through his butt? It's those little things we're just looking at. Can players sometimes obstruct here? Absolutely, where they're not actually near the ball, but they're kind of like preventing them. Absolutely, that could be a penalty corner, but that's an if and but situation. Here, the defender, I should say, is really trying to get the ball. So the white player, who is Belgium, okay, you have the Indian player trying to come through the back of him. And that's why it leads to this. And I think, I don't like to kind of interpret players, but I think his reaction to the call kind of says it all. Like, yeah, I was pushing through the back. He was trying it. I give him credit. He tried, didn't quite work out. So sometimes the reaction from the player kind of can validate your decision a little bit. Okay, so let's look at one more. Now this one, I don't have a poll for, but this one just came to me last week, and it's about looking at context, but looking at how we have, how series of events can happen in a game. And it's what we talk about nuggets in a game, those little opportune moments that come up that you go, that's an opportunity for me to step in and establish we're not having that in this game. So, oh no, I've got one more, dang it. See, this is why I get all excited. I didn't do a poll for this one. Sorry. I was trying to do this last minute on my poll because I hadn't done it before. So let's watch this one. Time.
Toying with it there, and now about that for a finish.
Now, thinking about what we talked about, that free hit around the circle's edge, okay? this one. For God's sakes, Leila. Right, this one, she initially was allowed to set up in that space. Okay, she probably could have backed up 5, but she was in the initial space and the player took it quickly. So yeah, she's allowed to stay there. She's doing fine. Where I think sometimes we get confused too is if the players just do those little pulls. Okay, so watching that player do the pulls.
Almost toying with it.
Now, what's hard to see she actually makes slight contact before the player has gone 5. Her body's inside the circle, absolutely. But that doesn't mean her stick is allowed to just wander out freely, okay? Her stick has to maintain inside the circle until she's traveled 5. She actually makes contact with the ball right there. So what happens? The 5 meter is mitigated, meaning ball doesn't have to travel 5. As soon as that defender touches it, 5 meters is over, okay? If it hasn't traveled 5, I should say. So then when she actually takes the ball inside the circle, even though it hasn't necessarily gone 5,
Almost toying with it there. And how about that for a finish?
it's a goal. It stands as a goal because as soon as that defender infringed on that 5 meters illegally, instead of awarding that penalty corner, the umpire played a very risky advantage and allowed the goal to stand. And I think that is brilliant umpiring. We talk about taking risks. You better make sure it's touched it and communicate to everybody, yep, she's touched it. The 5 meters is no longer available. Therefore, the goal stands. Okay? I'll look forward to your questions in the comments after that one. We're almost done, I promise, and then we can answer your questions. It's this one that I wanted to show you, which is very interesting, okay? I'm just going to show you through the whole thing. It's grainy, so I apologize. Okay. So, when we have opportunities come up in a game, and sometimes there's that one player that's going to make your life so enjoyable and makes it very easy for you. Okay, so let's take a look at this first one. Ball goes up. There we go. Lovely into space. Now, thinking about that other clip we watched with the Belgium and India. Here, the player is absolutely shielding the ball more. So I agree with the free hit decision to the attacker. However, like we said, does that player have that right to try and body slam that girl? No. So, have we cautioned that player? Have we maybe already cautioned her and we need to go to a green card? Because you could give a green card for that. She's not in control of her body and she's trying to stop her and break her down. So you could give, if you've already given that caution, or if, hey, I'm not having that in my game enough, then you could go to a green card. Then we think about the next scenario, and you can see it here. Yeah, she's definitely trying to prevent her, but she doesn't have a right to push through her. We look at this next scenario. We think about context. Look at all the players behind her. Is there a threat to them? Not yet. Okay. Where does she make contact? And she just leaves her stick in. Her attempt to tackle the ball, not there. Attempt to tackle the body, absolutely. So if you haven't given her a green card for that other infraction, this one is definitely going to be a green card because she's not getting the point of the use of her body. It's completely unwarranted. Now, if you didn't see her, here's our little friend. Okay. This is what we talk about incidences off ball. And then she's arguing that she's been hard done by. Defender's marking. That push off the ball, that's a yellow. There is completely no need for that kind of behavior in the game. And it's off ball. People think, well, it's off ball. It doesn't make a difference. But it does make a difference. And that shows that you're watching the game. Which one of your colleagues, who's talking about what position you're looking at where the ball is there, who's watching what. And that's why it's really important we talk about off-ball watching. It's not just about watching the ball all the time, but having that field of vision. And yeah, I was just bending down to tackle. I'm glad she demonstrated it again. Yeah. This player has not learned. What happened here was the umpires really didn't stamp on her quick enough. And so she was allowed to get away with a lot more. For me, that would have been her second yellow, which is a technical red, which would have meant off you go. That player actually did get a one-match suspension. She got pulled in front of the TD. And that's why reporting the cards with the detail of events to your league administrators, either on the island, for me, if you're doing it in the women's league, you need to send me that report, because we don't have video, and then I would investigate. But it's things like these we don't want in our game. And players think they can justify, oh, I went down like this, or I was just playing the game. That's not our game. And we don't want that in our game. And that's not keeping players safe. And so for me, to be honest, at that point, you probably could have given her a straight red, to be fair, because she was out there to create carnage. She wasn't out there to play the game. She hurt her. You know, when we talk about intent, we could understand what her intent was. And let's look at context. They're down 1-0. So it's all these little things that amount. And that's why we talk about setting your stall early, telling the players what you want and what you expect. And then if we don't deal with it, sometimes we end up with situations like this. And then it's really hard sometimes when I've got coaches or players going, well, they could have dealt with it here, here, and here. And I go, that's a good point, right? And I've had that in a game. I've completely been there, and I've had reports written back to my panel person going, you didn't get control early enough, and it ended up in carnage. And I go, yeah, you're right, absolutely. So we need to think about those little nuggets when they come to us. How are we going to deal with them? And sometimes You just get players like this that aren't going to respond to anything but cards, and get them off the pitch if they're keeping players unsafe. So just time to conclude, because I'm mindful I'm chatting. We want to think about how are we building our relationships? Are we giving our good visual communication to everybody? Playing with advantage with the arm, thinking about our positioning. Are we anticipating looking at how they're playing the game? Getting the decisions correct in our circle, absolutely. Be to your post early, okay? And thinking about your communication that you're giving to everybody on the pitch. So, again, if you have a good game, walk off the game and go, yeah, you know what? I did all right. And if you didn't, you go, okay, well, I could have done this, and this better. Take it, put it in your toolbox, bank it, get on to your next game. Because sometimes it's hard when you go back to back. You got to push that out of your mind. Just, it's hard sometimes, but how are you going to be better in that next game? So these are all still kind of in terms of COVID protocols. There's going to be further information I know coming out within the Island League, and there will be further confirmation coming out from the VWFHA regarding attestations and certain return to play guidelines. But again, we wait on VIA Sport and we wait on FHBC for that guidance. So we can only kind of monitor certain things as umpires. The biggest thing is this one with the spitting and Bushman nose blowing. It first of all, it's gross. So why are we doing it? And because of COVID anyways, it's just a great way to implement it. If you see somebody doing that, obviously first time, oi, don't do that. Second time, green card, off you go. We're just not going to have it. It's for player safety. It's for people feeling safe. In terms of umpires, if you want to umpire with a mask still and use electronic whistle, please do so. I still give you permission if you want to keep further distance from the play in order to maintain social distancing. Absolutely. And if you make wrong decisions, I'd rather you feel comfortable and safe than feeling without that repercussion of players are going to come after you, because one, they shouldn't be, and two, I want you to feel safe and comfortable, because ultimately without us, we don't have a game. Sorry. So I won't go into too much other. What I will do is pop into the chat, and I really apologize. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. So my sincerest apology, but some good chats. Sorry, John, I only just saw this. I'm hoping people could hear me. Apologies. Hopefully I'm speaking loud enough. Do you say clear so players know that they've gone 5? Yeah, absolutely. You could say 5. Communicating with them, but after that, most of those players know the rules. I'd probably say the lower ones, you could probably help them out a bit more. How many times can injector be replaced? Great question. How many do they have on a team? I don't know. I think maybe after the second one, you go, right, can we please sort something out? That's that communication of, right, we need to stop doing whatever we're doing to have this happen. So that's where having that chat with them. There isn't actually a set number. It just looks silly. Okay, so have that chat with them. Any mandatory equipment for juniors? Yes, all juniors must wear a mouth guard, and I do believe it's shin guards. I think it's part of the FHBC insurance policy, and people can, again, you know, if you're saying, no, Leela, you're wrong, then that's fine. I would say all players should be wearing a mouth guard. I think it's part of their insurance. They're not covered under their insurance if they're not actually wearing that safety equipment. So there you go. Basically, you'd be stupid not to wear it. The app sounds great, but previous communication has said we can't use our phones to time. Correct. You cannot use your phones to time. I do, because then people think, oh, you've got a message or you're messaging. You need to have a watch. So it could be, if you're using your iWatch, that's fine. Okay, I'll be able to tell if you're talking to somebody like this, like you're on Star Trek or something. Okay. If you want to just use an analog watch, completely fine. But you can use your Fitbit as well. That's fine. But yeah, just not your actual physical phones. The Galaxy Watch is a blue whistle with a white background, and the Apple Watch is the same. Okay. Clarifying. You cannot sub during a PC, but you can sub a second goalie to come off the bench. The only time you can do that is if it's for an injury or if they've been carded. That's the only time you can actually substitute a goalie is for an injury or that. You can't just go, oh, well, they've got a really good penalty corner unit, so we're going to switch them out. That's the only time you cannot sub a goalie just for free-for-all. The video, yeah, sorry about the video. Hopefully it'll show back better when we upload this to YouTube. And if anybody wants it specifically, I can always send you a link for it. So just to wrap up, so sorry, El Presidente has just messaged me that you can't actually make a claim on the mouthguard piece unless you have it in. So there you go. I differ. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I don't know when this will be uploaded. I'm hoping for next week, but I have to allow FHBC time to download it and upload it, but they've been rather busy the past few days, so we'll be patient with them. But thank you everyone for joining. If you do have any further questions, you can either reach out to your club or your local association, or feel free to shoot me a message. So have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you out on the pitch. Thank you, everyone.